Okay, which do you guys like better, an apple or an orange?
Apple.
I'm an orange.
Orange.
Okay, oranges. Personally, I like oranges better than apples, so if I had the choice between buying an apple or an orange, I would pick the orange. Which brings me to my next question, which is better, an orange or an orange? All these products taste about the same because they're made of about the same ingredients. But if I had the choice between these products, I would pick the one in the middle, simply orange, because it looks the best. And that's what graphic design is. It's the difference between what sells and what doesn't. And if your product doesn't look good, then nobody is going to pick it. You'll be an orange in a bin of oranges and nobody will notice you. This is why doing business without advertising is like winking at a girl in the dark, because you know what you're doing, but nobody else does. My name is Parker Spradley, and my ISM topic this year is graphic design. To learn more about this field, I interviewed professionals working in design, and my first interview was with Mr. Jason Franzen, who is the CEO of his own design company, More Simple. Mr. Franzen's business philosophy revolves around the paradox of more, which is that we have to think more about a message to convey it in less words. And I think that this philosophy is completely applicable to the process of logo design, because what you're doing is essentially capturing the essence of an entire company in what is basically a symbol. You want a logo that's going to be recognizable rather than something more complex. Then I traveled to Dallas to interview Miss Natalia Vargas, who is an art director at Bottle Rocket Studios. So an art director sometimes sounds like it would be different from a graphic designer. In some different businesses, they kind of oversee the layouts for the artwork and are responsible for arranging the artwork, but at Bottle Rocket, the titles are sort of interchangeable. And she's basically in charge of making all the art for Bottle Rocket. And Bottle Rocket Studios is a mobile application development place, so she'll be responsible for making all the screens and buttons. And one unique thing about Bottle Rocket is that it's a company that streamlines their application development process. And what that means is that within the company, there's a section for software developers and coders who are going to program the app, and another section for artists who are going to be creating all the art for the app. And Ms. Vargas likes how the process is streamlined because she gets to see her art implemented into the code. And another good thing about it is that they can consult the developers and ask, is this possible? Like if they want to, like if you click on this, it'll do this, like would that be easy for you to code? My third interview was with Mr. Josh White, who is the graphic designer at NBC Art House. NBC News is a news studio in Fort Worth, and the Art House is the design central for all the NBCs across the US. In Art House, they make the animations for different segments, the news weather icons, the logos for the news station, and basically all the art that is involved in broadcast news. My fourth interview was with Ms. Jen Wong, who is the CEO of her own company, Jen Wong Designs. And I think that the interesting thing about Ms. Wong is that she doesn't have an educational background in graphic design. Her background is actually in business. She majored in business management at UTD, University of Texas, Dallas. And her last job before she had this company was actually as a business management specialist at the Chinese multinational corporation Huawei. But then when I clicked on her portfolio, on her LinkedIn page, I realized that she's actually a very talented designer, in addition to having this business knowledge. So in graphic design, it's not necessarily about your educational background. It's more about, do you have a good portfolio, and are you a talented designer? In addition to conducting interviews to learn more about graphic design, I researched a few articles on topics in graphic design, and one of these was crowdsourcing. And the practice of crowdsourcing is basically a company soliciting designs from hundreds of designers to create a logo. And I believe that this is good for startups who don't have enough money to fund a professional campaign, because this can get very expensive. But it's bad for designers who work without guarantee of payment, because thousands of entries are going into this, and they're spending lots of hours designing this, and they have no guarantee that their designs will be chosen. Last month in October, our ISM class went on a field trip to University of North Texas. It's kind of an artsy school in Denton. and we got to sit on in different classes there. I sat in on Drawing 1, Design 1, and Interaction Design. And my favorite class that I sat in on was Interaction Design. And on the day that I came to shadow that class, they were having a class critique. So they had, all the students in the class had designed different web layouts for corporations that they were redesigning the websites for. And the professor's critiques were really interesting. They were things I had never thought about before. I thought all of the web layouts looked good aesthetically, but he would say things like some people would have just one page for their whole website. He'd say, no, you can't just have one long scrolling vertical layout. You need to have several pages and several buttons that will lead to those pages. Last year in ISM, I studied pulmonary and critical care medicine, so a lot of my research assessments was just me reading an article or a study and then writing what I learned about it. But since I'm doing graphic design this year, I thought it would be more helpful for me to learn about graphic design if I would actually do projects for my research assessments rather than just reading an article. So for my first design project, I wanted to design a vintage logo. And what makes a logo vintage, I guess, is a clipping mask effect. And what I mean by this is when you see a sweatshirt with the letters on it that are kind of worn out and kind of like peeling off, that effect is made with a clipping mask, which involves getting an image of speckles, overlaying it over the logo, which was just white, and then subtracting the speckles from the white logo design, which creates the illusion of it kind of wearing off. And then the image in the background there is a picture that I took in Estes Park, Colorado. In the front is just a logo that I designed with the clipping mask effect. My second design project that I did for my assessment was an ISM logo for our ISM program here at Frisco High School. Coach Goff wanted a logo for her website, and she wanted the logo to be the Frisco High School colors. So I took a Frisco High School logo and copied it into Illustrator so that I could have the right colors. The gold is gold Pantone, and then the blue is blue Pantone. And then for the little icons, they represent different aspects of ISM. The little handshake represents the interview aspect of ISM, and the book is the research aspect of ISM. And then for the remaining two, I just kind of picked symbols that I thought were scholarly in general. My last or most recent design project was on the psychology of color. And basically what I did was observe the impact that changing the color of something has on how people perceive it. Because a lot of people believe that the color that something has an emotional connotation. Like red could mean angry or blue could mean calm. So I used the color replacement tool in Photoshop to just recolor these pairs. I think that the image of the recolored pairs is a lot more visually striking than the image of just the plain pairs. And then this gave me an idea for my original work, which is to group the logos of companies in order of color and then kind of develop an idea of what I think people mean the connotations of different colors to be, and then create an ideal logo for each industry based on what I think the connotation is.